Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to catch these fish in these clear water lakes that are here in Virginia that are deeper, and how to catch them in this winter when they are dialed in on shad, rock piles, brush piles, and just kind of a little bit of everything you can think of when you catch one in the winter. Before we get into these key lures and about all the conditions and stuff, let's go ahead and hop into our verse for today. It's going to be Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, and it says, "Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need." Like it says in that, seek God above all else. I know all of us tournament anglers want to win these tournaments above everything else, but sometimes you just have to seek God and make sure you put him at the center of your life instead of fishing. Sometimes you can get real caught up in it. I know I do. But just give him all the praise and just thank him every day you're out there. And a lot of people can't get out on lakes. So if you are fortunate enough to be able to fish and get on a lake, just give him all the praise. And especially I know when I win a tournament, I make sure I give all the praise to God, and every bite I get, thank you, Lord. It's just a blessing to be able to get out here and get a bite. So that is the daily verse. So just make sure you're seeking God and not always getting so hyper focused on the fish and seeking out that win. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Today, I'm not only just going to be talking about the baits, I'm going to be showing you me catching them on these baits, because you can always just listen to somebody and think they know what they're talking about. But I really want to show y'all that this really works, and this is what I was catching them on. So we went to Smith Mountain and Philpott, so those are the two lakes I'll be talking about in this video. And I brought a couple lures up, and I'm going to be showing y'all some, if not the exact bait, something very similar to it. So let's go ahead and talk about the big hitter at Smith Mountain this day. It was clear water day, not real muddy. The lake's bent down about 3 foot, overcast, and a little bit of chop on the water. And first thing in the morning, I was throwing a jerk bait, and I caught about 3 fish on it, anywhere from that 2 pound to 3 pound range. And then that evening, I caught a couple fish on a jerk bait. I love a jerk bait when that water gets cold, and it's just a confidence thing for me. You cover water with it. It's still kind of finessey. It's a little bit less than a crankbait, and they just love it when that water gets cold. And sometimes those big fish will be keened up on that jerk bait. Another thing with a jerk bait, you don't have to be around shad to throw a jerk bait. Now, it definitely does help sometimes, but brush piles and rock piles, do not be afraid to throw a jerk bait. Say this brush pile is 50 foot out and you cast 100 feet out. So you reel it back in, get it to that right depth, you're jerking it, and then right at this brush pile, you give it a pop, and just let it sit above that brush pile. I guarantee you, especially in the lakes I'm around, 7 times out of 10, at least the fish will lift its head out of that brush pile. So, they usually get keened in up on it pretty good, and they like to be in brush piles around here. So usually at least one will lift its head out of this brush pile if there are any fish in it. And you can give it that pop again, and say your jerk bait's here and this is the bass. Anytime it gets a little closer to it, you just keep leading it on, and you can really keen in onto some really good fish in brush piles fishing the jerk bait. Some people don't think about it, but you just let that jerk bait suspend up above that brush pile, and you can get some really good bites. Now let's talk about what my dad caught this 6 pounder on. This is a DT16. Now the crankbait he was throwing that day, it was a Rapala. It wasn't this exact DT16, but it's very similar to it. Like I said, 16 footer. All these lakes around here are super deep, so he was throwing a deeper crankbait around some stumps on this real red bottom here, and he was just chunking and whining like he always does. And he came across this log, and he just loaded up, and it ended up being a 6 pounder. Just got that big bite covered in water with that red crankbait. It was red and kind of a greenish on top and kind of a darker color on bottom. But another key thing with a crankbait is I rarely throw a crankbait that doesn't at least touch bottom. If this is the bottom, say it's rock, mud, whatever, I want my crankbait to come down and hit it and pop off of it and get that real good bottom contact, because when it hits that bottom contact and it kicks up a little bit of that mud, those fish will react to it so much better. In my opinion, I've seen it out in the water, and I really think those fish eat it just even a little bit better if it is bouncing off the bottom. A lot of people think that, and I do too, especially, I mean, that's what a square bill is made for. That's what they're famous for, is to go up to some brush, some rock, some cover, come down and beat off that and just really get that noise going, and just moving that mud or moving that branch just a little bit will really keen you into some of those bites. So especially y'all in those grass lakes, y'all know red's a color in the winter because those crawfish, and red and grass lakes in the winter always work. But even in these deeper clear water lakes, it is still a bite. So do not be afraid to throw red if it's still clear water. Now I want y'all to listen to this crankbait. It is more of a, it's not very rattly. It's got a little bit of a knock to it. Hopefully y'all can hear that. But it's very faint. Now I do like that, but I got a crankbait up here that I like the sound of it a little bit more. It is a 6 cents, but just listen to the sound of it and you'll hear what I mean. Let me grab this hook right. It's got that real good thud, thud, thud action. Now, in colder water or in those areas where these fish are real finicky, I like that thud, 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 thud more than that real like spray can rattle sound, because I don't want something to go screaming above their head when the water's 35 degrees. I want it just to be a little bit more subtle, just a little bit of a knock, knock, knock instead of screaming through there. So I like that in those little colder water conditions. And I also always like when I'm throwing a crankbait, real, stop, real. I always like to give it a little pause, because especially in this cold water, they can really just keen into that when it just stops. So really that day, the jerk baits and the crankbaits was really keen in that day. And little rock piles, like I said, that red mud with those stumps on it. We really weren't catching them real deep that day. They were more on those shallow flats that had deep water around them. So they were still up on that shallow flats a little bit right before they made that real deep winter transition to chase those shad deep. Now let's fast forward a couple weeks, and I was at my local lake, Philpott. Now this day, it was me and my partner Chase. So I told him that morning, we're going to scope today. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put down the side scan and just look for shad all day. And once we find them, we're going to scope on them. So that's what we did. When we first got there, we saw some standing timber with some fish in it, but couldn't quite get them to bite. And then about an hour and a half goes by, and we get back in this creek. We ended up finding some shad, and almost the very back of it, like I said, deep lakes, it was still about 20 foot back there. And we started seeing some shad. I was like, all right. So I picked up my minnow rod. I got it here with me. I brought it up. It is a black bass by St. Croix. It's a 7 foot medium light fast. It's a little long for my liking. I just built another one. It's 7 foot medium light. I got the rod blank, put all the eyes on it. I just wanted it to be really dialed in for what I'm doing. But this is the minnow I was catching them on them that day. So this is a mooch minnow, but it's the bigger size they came out with recently. I've really been liking this because I always liked that freeloader, but I was like, man, I wish they just had that bigger size mooch minnow, because I like the mooch minnow just a little bit better, but it's always just that a little smaller, but I like the larger size. They just came out with this, and this little tail, if y'all don't know about the mooch minnow, y'all need to. It's one of the best scoping baits for the price, especially. That little tail, when you get in the water, it gives that real slight flutter, and if y'all don't know, those shad, it ain't like a big old bass when it's going through the water and that fin's just flapping. Those shad, their tails will just get that real light flutter to it, just like this has that real light flutter to it. So I really like the mooch minnow any time of year. It don't have to be winter either. The summertime, I've worn them out on this on the smaller size, so I've really liked this. And what this bass was doing was, it was in about 20 foot of water below these shad, feeding on these shad, just kind of waiting for that right opportunity to go up and grab some. So it was about 50 foot out, and I saw it, and I cast it in, and I just let it sink through that bait. And as soon as it sunk through, I could start seeing my jig head throughout that shad and really kind of see that separation. Kept it above his head and just gave it a little shake, and he came up right away and ate it. So if y'all are new to scoping, or if y'all just don't scope a lot, the biggest thing with scoping, in my opinion, is keeping it above their head. If you let your bait drop below their head, 80 to 90, I'd say 90% of the time, they're not going to eat it. They just really want that above their head, and just keep it away from them. Even if you don't think they're going to commit, you just got to keep it away from their head, make them chase it. They're predatory fish. They want their bait to be running from them. They don't eat stuff off the bottoms that's just sitting there. Even a worm, you got to pull it away from them, shake it a little bit. They want it to be going away from them. So if y'all don't fish a whole lot with a minnow, keep it away from them, and just keep them, lead them on. You don't want them to really get it. Same thing with that jerk bait. Fish come up, you jerk it away from them. Come up, jerk it away from them. They want it to be away from them, and they have to go get it. I've really found that out, and that is one of the biggest things when I'm scoping. Like I said, deeper lake, 1/4 ounce. Jig head, that's a little heavy for y'all out. For y'all down south, y'all might be more of an 1/8 or a 1/32, but around here in the wintertime, a 1/4 is hard to beat. So I caught one on that. It was around 3 pounds, 2.5, and I really think that minnow bite was going to be it, but we side scanned for a while, found some more shad at the end of the day, but they really didn't want that minnow. They wanted a Damiki axe blade. Now, I'm sure y'all have all seen baits like this, but this is the one I really like. This is the Damiki axe blade, like I said, and it is in that 1/4 ounce weight. Now, this thing sinks pretty fast, I ain't gonna lie to you, but these fish were in about 50 foot of water on shad. So they were chasing shad, and you had to drop down to them. And that real thin blade right there, and how it's in that slender profile, I think that's really what makes this bait that good. I like it how it's, like I said, with that crankbait, that's with those thicker profiles, it's more of a thud, but this is just that real fast rotation and getting kind of that flutter in, and I really like that vibration in these colder months. So how I was actually catching these fish is, like I said, in 50 foot of water, and I'd cast right on their head, probably 60 foot out. I cast right on them and just click it to release a line, and just let line out. Let it drop straight down on their heads, and they'd eat it on the fall 80% of the time. But if they didn't eat it on the fall, I'd rip it right up, and bam, they'd eat it as soon as I started ripping up. They didn't really like it when I drop it down and start reeling it up to them. They really just wanted that flutter down, and they were really keen on to those kind of a 2.5 to 3 inch shad size. So this being a smaller blade, and this, what I think is they actually think this is 2 bait fish instead of 1, this fluttering back here and this one, because these fish would always have this hook in their mouth. Even if they had this one, every fish had this hook in their mouth. So that's another big thing about this bait. Some of them don't have that rear hook, and that little stinger hook right there catches me 8 fish out of my 10 on this. So I really like that stinger hook. And they just usually eat that little blade and just grab it by the tail and just let it flutter down to them. And I really like this in the winter months. In the early spring and late fall too, this could be a big player. But like I said, Damiki axe blade, really good cold water lure. So those were my 2 main baits for Philpott and my 2 main baits for Smith Mountain. I hope y'all enjoyed this. The conditions at Philpott were overcast, just barely a little bit of chop. So I just really hope y'all like this video. And if y'all like kind of this informational stuff, I can do more of this. Just let me know what y'all like. And thank y'all for watching.